Hey everyone, this is Arabella from Arabella's Voice Studio, back for our next episode of In My Musical Opinion. I'm very excited for this episode. We're joined by Zack Auslander, all the way on the other side of the world in Japan.
Hello, everyone. I am Zack Auslander on the other side of the world in Japan. Arabella, thank you for having me today. I appreciate
Thanks
it.
for coming on. When I was planning for this episode, Zack, I was like, what do we talk about? Because you have done so much in the musical world. And I was thinking back to when we last saw each other, and I think I
Mm.
mentioned this to you when I saw you in Japan, was when you left, you said, I kind of want to go to Japan and move there, kind of want to tour in a band, kind of want to record some stuff, kind of want to get married. And the next time I saw you, you had done all of those things. And I think you have to fill in some of the blanks for us, though.
Yeah, definitely. I'm getting better at telling people about this story because
Okay.
people always ask, how did you end up in Japan? But yeah, long story short, I went to Japan in 2019, which was before like the world shut down with COVID for anyone who probably hasn't forgotten. Um, and yeah, I was like super into it. And I think a lot of people that go there as like tourists generally fall in love with it. Of course, living versus being a tourist are two different things, but it's a really cool country. It's really clean. It has a really good music scene. Besides like the US, it has a pretty high level music scene. And yeah, I really dug it. And I went back to the US and then COVID happened and I did some other gigs in the meantime. And I was really lucky that I got to do a little bit of world traveling around that time because I was doing like a cruise ship gig and would occasionally go places to play music and do things. And at some point in that interim, I ended up back in Japan and I was super pumped about it. And I think the really cool thing about ending back up there a couple of years later was that the kind of like tourist glow of wanting to live there had definitely faded. I think at the point that I had finally gotten back, my eyes were really keen on ending up at this conservatory in Amsterdam because like I wanted to do like a fellowship there. I thought that would be so cool, and I had really fallen in love with living there. But yeah, long story short, I had a really good time in Japan. I met this lady who became my girlfriend, who is now my wife. Her name is Mika. She's really cool. Shout out to Mika. And yeah, I came back to like try being with her for a couple months when I wasn't doing any work, and I really dug it. So we ended up, well, we didn't get married immediately. I ended up getting a short term work visa through an international school. And long story short, I broke my contract but held on to my visa to live in Japan, which is a little sketchy, but you can kind of get away with those things sometimes. So, yeah, we ended up being together for like a year and got married. And then the world of working legally super opened up to me, and that was great. And now it's been a
Nice.
cool little, journey since then. So that's the easy, short version of that.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations on a number of
Thank you.
different fronts.
Yeah, right.
You loved Japan, but you've done a lot of traveling, so you really knew that you loved Japan. You did the cruise lines for a while.
Yes, I did. I did those for a
Talk to us a
while.
little bit about that. What was that
Yeah,
experience like?
working on, I read someone's like Instagram post about this the other day, but the really cool thing about working on cruise lines is that it's super decent money and you get to play like every day pretty much. At least in the situations that I've had always, you're either, depending on how long your contract is, because I don't know how much, yeah. Anyways, I did a bunch of those like little cruise ship contracts. I did two really long ones and then I did like maybe four or five really short ones. And depending on like your stay, usually you have like 6 days on, 1 day off kind of thing in a week, which is, like, granted, it's playing music and it's fun, but it's a lot of work still. And I think better
Yeah.
than it being a lot of work, it's like it's paid practice, if that makes sense. Like you have to do it all the time. Whereas like if you're in a city, maybe you're doing like more weekend stuff and teaching in the weekdays. I think a lot of people are more familiar with those kinds of like work rhythms. Like maybe you're playing 3 gigs a week, but when you're doing 4 sets, 6 nights a week, you just get so much time to get better at music, I feel, if you kind of look at it that way. So that was a really cool part about that job. I also really liked traveling. I feel like the chunk of time that I did it for, which was around a year and a half, give or take, is like a really healthy amount of time to like go travel the world and practice a bunch and like be excited. And no hate to the people that do it for like 20 to 30 years, 20 to 40 years. But yeah, I can definitely understand how like you would also burn out very quickly in those kind of environments when you're living on the waters like 9 months of the year,
For
you know?
sure.
Yeah.
So, talk to us a little bit about the idea of paid practice, because that's actually come up on a lot of our podcasts. Especially,
Mm,
we've had a few people, one or two people on here who worked on the cruise lines as well. And
mm,
it's funny, they use the exact same language, paid practice. And one of the
mm,
questions that comes up from students a lot is how much music theory or sight reading knowledge do you need to start one of those jobs? And I've actually had a different answer from every single person. So I'm curious to know
mm.
your thoughts.
It always boils down to what is the gig. So if you're playing in like a top 40s cover band on a cruise ship, generally speaking, you won't really need any music theory or sight reading knowledge. And I don't mean to like, I don't mean it this way, but I almost say it begrudgingly because like I'm such a like heavy, yeah, advocate for learning those things, even though honestly, like I have pretty good ears and most of the time just don't think about that stuff. I think it's so important to like have is the word nomenclature, like how to like define things to like share
Right.
the knowledge. But yeah, like I've played those kinds of gigs with people who are like really, really good and they don't know any of that stuff and they learn the tunes super quickly by ear and they're ready to go. So, I mean, there are definitely situations where it's absolutely like almost obsolete. Like you won't be talking about it. Maybe they'll be like, go to the four chord kind of thing, which is very like, year one of music theory type stuff, but still good knowledge to know. Um, and then, yeah, like I've also done gigs on cruise ships where you are like what we call being in a pit band. So there's like maybe like a play going on in back of you, or more of the time it's like maybe four people like doing like their like kind of little show and they have their own like sheet music and you're probably playing along to a track, right? Like there's like a backing track and you're just like playing the parts that are like assigned to you. So for those gigs, like reading is a must. And I'm super happy that my pride was hurt when I went to college and they were like, you're bad at reading. So I practiced reading every day until I wasn't bad at it anymore, you know? I guess like for your listeners slash people who are attending your studio, I would just say to anyone out there, like core curriculum music stuff, like I would say that would be ear training as a first, uh, instrumental technique as a second, and music theory as a third. Like having
Hmm.
those three things to any varying level is super important. But I would definitely put them in that order. Like I found that my ear training stuff has like made my professional life possible because I can like
Hmm.
be in the car on the way to the gig and hear the song and be like, okay, okay, got it. And that's like sometimes you need that skill, or sometimes like you just show up to a place and you want to make music with people, and it's like easier to participate if you can hear it as a language.
I've shared this with other people, but I don't actually think I've shared it with you. We launched a piece of curriculum called Sing Theory, which is the
Mm,
idea of really singing the scales and the harmony,
mm,
singing chords, voicings, to really get it into our bodies and minds. And something that inspired me to do that is taking lessons with you actually and other like teachers who taught me instruments, and the voice is an instrument, but I'm going to separate it out for
yeah, yeah,
just a
yeah.
second here.
Go for it.
Um, because I think that ear training is so routinely taught, or theory is so routinely taught to instrumentalists, and it's not to singers in that way.
Mm,
And it
mm.
wasn't until I started taking guitar lessons with you, Zach, that I was like, oh, I really need this. And it started my deep dive into it. And I would say, when were we doing guitar lessons? Like 20,
Five,
20,
six.
21. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
So
Yes.
it's been like a half a decade journey now
Mm, mm,
of
mm.
diving deep into ear training and then releasing something where I feel like other people can benefit from that, especially singers. And I really have to thank you and among other instrumentalists and teachers who were like, I honestly, and I'm not going to, these aren't your words, so I'm not quoting Zach, but I had guitar and piano teachers go, it's really hard to play for singers when they're not counting. and they
Mm,
can't hear the chord changes, and I'm roasting
mm,
myself here. But it's true. Like, I think
mm,
you go to a voice lesson, you learn pitches and you learn phrasing. I think singers are really good at phrasing, but
mm.
you don't learn that stuff. And so I have to thank that side of my education for it.
I am beyond honored to be a small little pebble in the stream that brought you
a
to that
big
journey. So,
a big
yes,
pebble, a big rock
a
in
moderately
the
sized
street.
rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm really happy to hear that. And you're right. Like a lot of what I do for a living now, and it's built on skills that I've somehow like kind of stumbled into. But people tend to call me a lot for duo gigs. That's like the
Mm,
big thing I've always done since I've lived in like the Northeast, like Boston, New York, or anywhere. It's a skill that I've developed because I've done it a bunch, and because of that, I work a lot with vocalists. And yeah, it's really helpful when they like know how to communicate with me about things, and I don't have to like learn the lyrics as much, if you will. But it's been a cool journey, like figuring out also how like because sometimes you like work with a vocalist who's like supernaturally gifted, for lack of a better word. Though I'm sure they've practiced their craft in many other
sure.
ways. But yeah, like so many people have different ways of approaching this, and it is really helpful when someone's like, "Yep, we're going to take it from the bridge. We're going to take it from like halfway through the bridge, this phrase," and I'm like, "Cool, nice," or
Yeah.
"We're going to hit it on the four chord," and I'm like, "Yeah, the four chord. There we go." But
Hmm.
anyways, yeah,
This episode is sponsored by ABS. Together, we are redefining what it means to be a musical community. Rather than a single central studio, our presence is woven into the fabric of our city. You'll find us in boutique practice rooms strategically placed at the heart of the action from Rock City, Alston to across from the Symphony in Back Bay. We gather in local pubs, breweries, at local open mics, channeling our resources into getting singers out of the practice room and onto stages in the greater Boston area. So it sounds like you've really sort of cultivated or found your scene in
hmm,
Japan. I mean, other places too. It seems like you're someone who sort of always finds the niche of the scene or the center of it. I will say that my Boston music scene is not quite as fun without going to your gigs in the area. But how do you do that? How do you find your spot?
I think a lot of it has been luck. So I'm very happy to say that I've been lucky to meet the right people at the right times. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, like what I do is a little niche. I have a couple things that I do, but I really like to play guitar and support like songs with it, whether it's like doing it on like a jazz front, a funk front, or a pop front. And when people tend to hear me do both like the background, like rhythm guitar parts, if you will, like the supporting role, the accompaniment role, and when they hear me do like the solo role, I think I've developed enough of a voice with my like nerdy things that I like that kind of draw from like my jazz and pop
Mm.
influence that people seem to vibe with it. And yeah, I mean, it's an ever, it's an ongoing journey of being, somewhat decent at music, right? There's just so much stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm happy that I'm really lucky that I get to do this and practice all the time, paid practice. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think just at the end of the day, like if you're putting in a ton of work to music, and I think people, that shows. And if you're reliable, I tend to like really over prepare for a lot of the gigs I do. I don't do it as much as I did in my earlier 20s now because I've gotten a little bit lazier, but I do tend to memorize a lot of the music, or at least like make really, like complex notes on my charts if I'm reading charts, just to like really like nail things. And I think like that level of preparation really helps kind of weed your ways into the groups of people that you want to be with. So,
Yeah, I remember we were having a conversation. I think when I was kind of trying to find what my primary instrument was going to be or my focus,
mm,
I think I always kind of knew. I think in
mm,
some ways we know what
I
we
knew.
always go back to. Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
thing where you're like, I'm gonna just do this for fun, I think, and then
Mm,
everything
mm,
else just feels like extra, at least in my
mm.
opinion.
That's well
But there was
said.
a while where I was like, well. I feel like I should focus on guitar because I really need the technique, or I feel like I should focus on piano because I really could
Mm,
use the accompaniment skills. And, it can't take lessons and everything. And especially on a weekly basis, like I never have time for anything else, right? And
yeah.
you were like, well, I stopped taking weekly lessons somewhere along the way, some probably further along in your journey, but like I still know how to like grind on it, still know how to
Mm,
practice on it. And then when I go into lessons, it's not just like, oh, I'm learning. It's like, oh, I'm bringing this concept in and we're almost like shedding
mm,
on it.
mm,
Which
mm,
I
mm.
thought was really interesting, sort of shifted the way I was thinking about it. Because now when I go
Yeah.
to my voice teacher, I have the things learned and
Mm.
then we go deeper into technique, but I don't, and everyone's different, every teacher's different, but I don't show up without my material learned.
Yeah, like I think, you know, for, for all of the things that I'd forgotten from like primary school, like going, from like K through 12, if you will, for people in the US, like, yeah, like learning how to learn is such an important skill. Like, and we all learn differently, as you said. So once you figure out what works for you, and once you've amassed or like gathered a set of skills or concepts on your instrument, for me, like once I learned how to learn things by ear and how to work on technique in a way that was suitable to me, then I could like really grind out the things I needed to, that pretty much got me to a place where I could do whatever job I needed to professionally. And then when something is like really so like obscure to me or a new concept, or maybe I really want to understand how someone else is thinking about things and see if I can incorporate that into my zone, that's when I really like to look into the lesson category. And I think it's a really cool way to like find the teachers that you're interested in, or find the people that you're interested in, and like try to like make their thinking like, I don't know if the word is like an amalgamation, but like, you take all the best parts and you try to like fit it into yourself.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting? The deeper I went in on my instrument, like the deeper I started going in on the voice, the other things
Mm,
started to click as well. Like
mm,
I was
mm, mm.
still learning harmony, so when I sat down at the piano, like it was a little easier in some ways yeah, some ways no, but in some ways
Mm.
singing and harmony is harder because you only have one voice, and so you have to be
Yes.
hearing those chord voicings in your head and be
Mm,
able to pull them out depending on how like the song is shifting versus like on the piano everything, or on the guitar everything is under your hands, which is hard motor wise,
mm.
but I think it's a little bit more tactile, like you're using more of your senses. But that's just to say that when you go deep in one thing, a lot of times the other things start to click.
Yeah, I love that like kind of like visual of like when you learn like one instrument really well, you can kind of apply things to the next one, and like it almost feels like one brain is like teaching the other brain. Is how I
Yeah.
kind of look at it. So yeah, for me, like when I like visualize harmony in my head, and like I'm like trying to like actually like hear like a singer kind of like, something holding the pitch, if you will, I still see like shapes on the guitar,
Mm.
or when I'm like trying to like figure things out on the piano, like my brain still goes to the fretboard because that's like my first association with like visualizing notes, if you will.
Right. Okay, so let's get specific for a second. Give us the secrets. How do you start kind of entrenching your brain in in the
Sure.
ear training slash theory? How do you do it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Probably by doing everything that Arabella Berman says to do at your vocal lesson. But no, seriously, I
Good
think
advice. No, I'm
like,
just kidding.
yeah, right. I think just starting out really simple, like singing a bunch of major scales is super good. And then like sight reading melodies that are like inside of major scales, right? Like that was like super like level one ear training that like kind of changed my life. Singing chords is really good too. For all the hate that Berkeley gets all around the world, it also gets a lot of love. And like those core curriculum ear training classes are so well designed. Like it's, like 60 plus years of like how to get your, like how to, you know, plug into the ear training world. And yeah, I really think like step one is like being able to like look at a sheet of music, get a reference note, and like after practicing major scales and arpeggios, maybe you would start with the C major scale, or just major scale, any of them. And you would like learn to sing the scale, learn to sing all of like the 1, 3, 5, patterns starting on each note in the scale, like do, mi, sol, re, mi, fa, for example. And once that's comfortable, you move on to melodies inside of that scale. And once you have access to that kind of information in your head, I think the lights start to kind of flicker on. You know, that's when like you hear a song like Perfect by Ed Sheeran. And like when you hear it, you're like, oh, this is in a major scale. And like this note is this note. Oh my God, you know, and it kind of starts to click like that.
Yeah. I think that's great advice and a great starting point. And I think if all the singers or all the instrumentalists listening just started with that, you would probably be miles ahead of many of um, the listeners around you.
I really think so. Yeah, I to all of you out there, your training nutrients, it's so good. It made me such, you know, I spent probably before really getting deep into ear training, like maybe somewhere between 5 to 6 years of my music journey, just really focusing on guitar and even at that point, like trying to learn stuff by ear. And it was really slow. It took me a while. And it was once I like separated ear training as its own important thing that everything just kind of like clicked, you know?
Was there a moment in your whole career, whole learning process where you're like, wow, I'm doing the thing. Like I'm doing it. I figured it out. I kind of figured out the recipe. Are you still like on the search?
That's such an interesting question. It's like low key, like very simple, but I never think about stuff like that. So that I don't know. Really good question. I think probably yes. I think there was probably a moment that I can't like it's not coming back to me like that was the moment. But I think when I
Mm,
really started like hearing like this is a little nerdier, but when I started like hearing chord changes in my head without an
mm,
instrument, and when I started like being able to like listen to the jazz guitar records that I really liked and could start hearing them, like the lines that were going on without an instrument, that was when I was like, oh, okay. I I something is really clicking here. Like this is the recipe. Like this is where my brain needs to be. So like everything is going to be a lot like I can like streamline the process quite a bit now. And when like things are like more obscure to me or like really new knowledge, that's when I like kind of go back to the drawing board. Like recently, I'm it's probably funny for you to hear, but like because of some of the J-pop work that I do, I need to like be able to like really channel that like kind of hair metal 80s like rock fusion shred guitar stuff. It's like such an important
cool.
sound to like play some of the music that I'm doing. And I quite like some of that stuff. And yeah, like it's all really fast. So at first when I was hearing it, I was just like, oh yeah, it's phrases like this. And then I would start trying to like replicate them. And I was like, okay, like there is clearly like more like nuance going on here that I need to figure out a little bit. So, you know, you like slow things down, you learn a couple solos, and then again, like you somehow something clicks and you listen to it and you're like, okay, now I'm hearing this a lot better. So, yeah, I don't know if that was the best answer you were looking for, but I think like a huge click
No.
moment for me was when I could really hear things on my own and like how to build the ability to hear them.
This episode is sponsored by Piano for the Vocalist. Piano for the Vocalist is your ultimate resource for unlocking the skills to self-accompany with confidence. This largely free program is focused on teaching singers to use collaborative piano techniques for vocal performance rather than traditional piano skills, empowering you to accompany yourself with ease. Yeah, no, I have not the same answer, but I think I have a similar sort of ambiguous answer. And my tangent response to you is my mom used to really encourage us to be bored, which is a weird thing to say, but like
Hmm.
she used to like really be like, you can't appreciate things until you can sit in boredom with them.
Mm,
And I think for a long part of my journey, I felt like sort of pressure to like get to the next level, get to perform, get to teach, get to
mm.
do this, and like there's like a constant drive behind it. And like there was a few moments in the last couple of years where I'm like, wow, things are kind of like good, but they're stagnant and like not in a
Mm,
bad way. Like the systems are working. Like I don't really have to like worry about the income. Like I have to work for it, but I don't have to worry about it. And I don't like I can play the songs I want to do and now I'm a little like, well, are they interesting to me now? Or like but that's all good things, I think, because then you can sit there
yeah.
and be like, "Wait, it's boring because I did the thing a bunch of times and they're like they're working." Like I think boredom is almost a sign of things working.
Yeah.
And so that was a big realization for me.
I really like that concept. Your mom is very smart, and I like your take on it. To like kind of piggyback on what you're saying in tangent, I post a lot on like Instagram these days. I'm like really like kind of grinding to grow my social media with hopes that it can kind of spill into some sort of thing that like
Yep.
gives me more connections, blah blah blah. And the things that I'm good at are things that I've been like playing slash working on for literally ever. So like when I hear myself play like the same kind of like guitar licks or like super jazzy fast thing, like believe me, I've played some variant of that like 100 times already. Being in boredom or like doing something a million times does mean that you have comfort to do it well. It doesn't mean that it will always be the most interesting thing to you, but for me, like playing like very fast, clean jazz guitar licks is something that people like really like. It like moves them in some kind of way because it's either like cool to see it in person, or maybe it's something they haven't had access to before, or maybe some way that I do it and put it in pop music is like interesting to them. And for me, it's like probably in my head, I'm a little bit like, all right, here I go doing that kind of thing again. Like I've only, here's, time, number 1001 that I'm doing this thing. But it's cool because like I can fall back on these skills and, I can keep working on the thing that I'll be bored from in the next 10 years now, and try to incorporate that as we go.
Right. If you're seeing it on social media for our listeners, like if you're seeing a lesson video take, I promise you 99.9% of the time that was not the first time that they recorded that. Maybe
Yeah, definitely not.
like it's definitely not the first time they've done it in their lifetime and it's probably not the first time they took that take.
I make a lot of content like that. Like I'm practicing this thing, and a lot of them are like take number 40. Unless it's kind of like a live play along thing, like I'm jamming to this song, then maybe it's like I'll just play along to the song like 10 times and pick my favorite version of it. But yeah, especially like the practice stuff. That's why social media is also really cool because like if you're just trying to get like 15 seconds of that crazy Charlie Parker thing or that crazy Layla Hathaway like vocal run, you get to do it like 1,000 times until you get a good take and you work on it. It's like practicing and like, it's really good to record yourself while you practice and hear back so you know where to fix things. So in that way, like for me, like something that bums me out about social media is that it kills people's attention spans. And like in the musical
Mm,
realm, people aren't really listening to like full albums or even like really paying attention to full songs that much anymore. But like
right.
you got to really kill it in like 15 to 20 seconds. And because you're practicing something that's like very like short, but you're doing it over and over again, trying to get that perfect take, it does help you like pinpoint specific skills. And I do like that that has helped me get better at certain things.
All right. So I do have to admit, big Jonas Brothers fan, watched their podcast the other day. Um,
Nice, nice.
but they said something really interesting and definitely encourage people to go listen to Jonas Brothers because I'm a fan. But even if you're not a fan, this thing I think is still relevant to the conversation. And that is they said that they're having their 20-year tour. And they said when they first started, the game was write a hit because you
Mm,
wanted streams and downloads and like that's how they were getting paid. And
mm,
now they're writing towards the algorithm essentially.
mm,
And I don't know if they would really phrase it that way, but they
mm,
were saying that like they basically have this formula now where it's like easy listening to a money note every like
mm,
30 seconds essentially so that it can be like on TikTok and Instagram and attached to people's social medias because that's what drives people into tours. And now that's how they're getting paid. So like they're getting paid from their tours and like if a song gets to be, top one, two, three spots, like that's a bonus. Really what
right.
they want is for you to like be able to take the song and like use it to whatever capacity you want so that it gets shared so many times to drive people in the door. And I just really loved how they just said it because I
Mm,
think a lot of artists are doing it, and you can have debates about whether or not that's a good thing, but I think
mm,
it's sort of existing in the world right now. And they were like, in order to have this big business that we're running, like this is sort of what it is right now, and we're
mm.
doing it.
Yeah, respect to them. There's a really good phrase in Japanese that like really clicks with my brain right now. It's called shoganai. Like it is what it is, like we have to deal with it, but it's like a little more like proper and it's like super, used by anyone. So yeah, it sucks. Like Spotify and all the streaming platforms have like killed our ability to like sell music that way. But also like now, whenever I have any questions about music or need to hear literally anything, I just open up my cell phone and like boom, there it is. So in some ways, it's really cool. We're driving people back to live music, and that's like super sweet. And that's what I do
I
for a
think
living. So yay.
that's a great way to look at it. I haven't heard it phrased that way. I kind of tell people is like just know your goal. Like if the goal
Yeah,
is to sell tickets, great. If the goal is to write the next hit, great.
it's great.
Just have your have
Yeah,
the thing that drives you.
yeah.
But Zach, I don't want to take too much of your time here, but I
Mm.
always end all our podcasts with like if you were to leave us with one piece of practical advice that we could end on, what would it be?
Okay, we talked a lot about ear training, so I'll try to venture off of that for a second. Okay, here's one that I think
Okay.
maybe is applicable yet honest. Um, if you're really into music to like the extent that you want to like do it for a living and or just like and even if that's not the case, you just really love it and you want to improve at it and like have it as a part of your life, um, there's probably like an artist or a select group of artists that like really clicked with you. It might be the Jonas Brothers, or it might be like George Benson for me. Like it's a whole spectrum of great musicians out there to choose from. And
Right.
depending on
Different genres, but
yes, yes, but no, if you really like an artist and they really click with you, I would say like do a deep dive on that musician, like learn so much like not just about them, but like really just like inside of the music, like learn a bunch of their songs, learn how their songs work, learn who they liked to listen to that maybe influenced their songwriting and or musicianship. And if you kind of like join people's school of thought, if you will. So for me, that was like the jazz guitar school of thought was something that always really like I was super into it. And when I discovered George Benson and like saw that like wow, this dude can play like 80s like funk hits, but like shred jazz over it and it works. Like, how? Like I wanted to learn more how he did that and how that worked to his brain, or at least how I could explain what he's doing to myself. And that led me kind of like follow that like flow of school of thought. And so, like, having your, I don't know if idol is the right word, but like having your like people that you really look up to, like the musicians that you like really just click with, and if you can like take the time to deep dive into their stuff in any way, I think that is a super great way to get where you want to faster, because a lot of the stuff you're listening to from them is probably already like soaked into your brain anyway. You're just like decoding what's already in there waiting for you.
I love that. Especially when you said it's already soaked into your brain. I just think like you'd be surprised about what you already absorb just by like being a human out in the universe. Like music is seeps in from everywhere, even when we don't sort of recognize it. So that resonates with me.
I'm happy to hear that.
Well, Zach, thank you so much for joining us. I know it's also early in the morning where you are, so I really
Yes.
appreciate it and your time as always.
Thank you so much for having me, Arabella. I really appreciate it. And yeah, it's great to see you always.
All right, everyone. We'll be back for our next episode. Stay posted.